Today we're going to look at Yasuie, one of the most underrated decks from this set, because just everything from this set is actually just so good, except Pale Moon. Alright, I said it. But Yasuie, everyone thought it was crap, but actually turned out pretty amazing. So we're going to jump into this deck right after the jump. Alright guys, so why do we want to play Yasuie? Well, firstly, it's a cheap deck. Everyone has been looking for other cards in Butterfly. They've been cracking surprisingly a decent amount of stuff. So in the end, Yasuie just becomes the leftover deck. And it's funny, because Murakumo is always usually the leftover deck. And then it's always usually the cheapest in every set. But it always turns out to be meta. And this time we doubted Murakumo, but it still turned out to be a pretty decent deck. So overall, it's a very cheap deck. I think if you go to TCG Player, the VR Yasuie here that you see on the screen is only selling for like $5. So probably means you can find it cheaper in real life if you can even go out, of course. But yeah, everyone's searching for other stuff. Everyone wants the RLR. So overall, it's just an amazing set. Actually, every single clan in this set is good. So Yasuie, kind of the least favorite clan, but people still want it. Well, not as much people want it, so you can get it for cheap. It has good matchups in the current Protect-centric meta. So right now, especially from Butterfly, we got DI and Grand Blue, big Protect decks. They're technically good matchups for you. DI is a better matchup if you go first. Night Rose, kind of more even. They can hit big, hit annoying, still draw a decent amount of cards, but again, if you go first, you can steamroll really hard and win. It's one of the better Excel decks for a while, because if we look at the other Excel decks that are coming out, next set we've got Shadow Paladin set, and then we got the Tachikaze. That's basically it, right? The rest of the clans are not Shadow Paladin, so we don't have to worry about them. But after that, we got Blue Storm Cavalry, which coming in with like Aqua Force, Great Nature, Nova Grapple. There's lots of Excel clans there. Don't get me wrong, they're playable, but in a way, they're kind of similar to Yasuie. So if you want that cost performance, like right now, if you want to play right now, you don't want to wait 2 sets later for like Excel clans that have to deal with Luard. I mean, you have to deal with Luard, but hopefully you get the PR by then and can do stuff. But yeah, if you want to play now with a cost-effective deck, then Yasuie is where you want to be. It isn't until like V-BT09 where you get things like Gold Paladin where things start changing. And lastly is if you like to play Y Schwartz. Now, why did I put that in? Well, Y Schwartz is a game about compression, and the more you compress, the more you get screwed, right? You have 8 Climax in deck, you still take 7 damage and die. This is the same with Yasuie, with this current version of Murakumo. You have ways to compress your deck so it's full of triggers, and you'll be looking at something like, whoa, I've got 16 cards in my deck, 13 cards of triggers. I'm going to trigger like 3 triggers and destroy my opponent. So what's going to happen is you're going to just trigger blanks and feel really awful. And that's exactly why you want to play Yasuie. It's a cheap deck, compresses really hard, and you're going to have fun. And you're going to have more fun when you just die to crappy RNG. So let's just take a look at the current build of Yasuie that I have. Let's just jump into it, guys. So let's just dive into the English version of Yasuie. So first thing we're running is 4 of the Stealth Rogue of Revelation Yasuie. So this card is your grade 3 ride, just your best grade 3 ride. You basically want to ride it whenever you ride grade 3 first, and then you want to ride it every turn after that, just so you can keep on re-riding. So first effect is just a Clone 2 effect. The cost is amazing, Counterblast 1, Soul Blast 1. So you can get a +2 for just CB1. That's pretty nice. And then the second effect is a re-ride effect from Drop Zone. So you gotta have the Tenma in the Drop Zone, but it doesn't have any other restriction apart from that. So a lot of these effects usually are linked with a grade 3 in Soul, or your opponent has to be grade 3. This doesn't have that, so you can immediately put on like a re-ride pressure and start hopefully dealing damage to your opponent. That's the best thing. Going first with this is actually just very, very good high roll. We're running 4 Tenmas as well, because that is what you re-ride into. So this first effect is like a scuffed version of Revelation Yasuie. It only counterblast 1, so no Soul Blast, but it only clones 1. So it doesn't really get that big board tempo as you would normally like. And his second effect is a rearguard effect. It is basically removal. So when it attacks, you may give it 10k, and then until the end of that battle. And then at the end of that battle, you retire this unit, so it sets up your original Yasuie's requirement for the rewrite. and then you choose a card on your opponent's side of the field, a regard, and you bottom deck it. So it's not like you retire it, you bottom deck it. So in some cases better, some cases not. Most cases it is better because it means you just can't access it. But that's basically it. We also run 4 One-Eye Nudo. Now this guy is back. You've probably seen it in Hyuga. You can easily build a field full of Nudos, and then that's how you get your big tempo swing. So you know, like clone 2 Nudos. You have other cards that can get become Nudos. So you clone 2, and then something at the end of turn, you can just get like draw 3. So it's really, really amazing. Unfortunately, it is adding to the grade 3 count, and we're gonna see quite a lot of grade 3s, but just the overall ability to just generate cards and generate soul as well. Don't forget, you generate a lot of soul with this, with all the rerides and this guy. They can really fuel what is the last card. It is Shiryuki. So good old Shiryuki restricted to 1. She's still in the deck simply because it's just minusing power is great, especially offensively and defensively. So the combo with this card is that you want to play a Shiryuki twice, so you can really neg your opponent's power, and then your stuff starts hitting for decent amounts. Big problem with Yasuie is that the power lines aren't exactly super high, so when they get a trigger, you just become really, really sad. But luckily with Shiryuki, especially if you're able to get it twice a turn, you can then just really put on some pressure. So that's all the grade 3s that we're running. 13 grade 3s is quite a lot, but you know, grade 3s are good, and you get to filter your deck really, really quickly. So let's move on to our grade 2 lineups. So firstly, the probably really most important card that you'll see is running 4 Owazu. So this card pretty much just copies anything, becomes anything at once. When it comes into play, you may search your deck for 1 card, put it into the drop zone, shuffle your deck, and this unit gains that card's name until the end of the turn. So idea, you turn this into a Shiryuki, then you can like call it out during the battle phase. Otherwise, you clone a Nudo, put it to the drop zone. Remember, your new card effects let you clone things from the drop or deck, so you can call them out from anywhere, basically, except damage zone. So you call a Nudo, put it to drop, then you can search your deck for like another Nudo and call it out. If you already have a Nudo in your hand, then it's just perfect, right? This becomes a Nudo, you play down a Nudo, clone 2 Nudos, and then you win, right? One thing to note, that this unit gets that card's name, so it's still an Owazu, but technicalities, you can get 2 Nudos. Cool stuff. The second grade 2 card we're running is Fushimi, alright? Crazy card. This card hits 14k, that's really good. But also, you can attack a back row. And attacking a back row is pretty good too, because you have annoying things. Later you have like Nemains, Luard. Now you have like Killer Tails that you want to kill, so when you go first against DI, this is how you just win more, right? You ride this, kill their Killer Tail, force them to guard the Killer Tail. They don't have damage, they're just terrible, terrible state. Feels good. And then lastly, last 2 cards, pretty flex slot. I'm running Midori Pyro just to dig through my deck. One of the big problems in this deck is that you don't get your other Yasues or some cards that you want, so this helps you dig for that. You can run other stuff. I know people run the guy that gains 5k. I've got the name, starts with a K. I'll put it on the screen right now. But you can run that, but that means you probably take out some Fushimis and just run 4 of that. Alright, that's all the grade 2s, 10 grade 2s. And lastly, we're on grade 1s. So we run 4 of the grade 3 searcher. Pretty self-explanatory. You want Yasues, right? You want Yasues. You want Nudos to clone, and all the grade 3s are pretty good. We run 4 Takahime, because we want Yasue's again. But also her second effect allows us to call things during the battle phase. And when we re-ride our Yasue, we get an Excel circle, and that will usually be empty, because we can't play out things during the battle phase, except with this card. With 1 CD, you can call out a card, you can clone a card from your drop zone, and then you can just put it in that empty spot. But you start getting some combos with this, right? You know, an Owazu becomes a Shiryuki, you call that Shiryuki out, and that's the combo. And then lastly, we're just running 2 Rainy Madame. This is our flex slot. This card allows us to generate soul. It also gets Shiryuki back into hand, and that's generally good, because it gives us some flexibility. We can add the Shiryuki back into hand. Next turn we can call it out again, or we can just use it for defensive play. And then lastly, we have our grade 0s. So starter, we're running our good old Goemon, best starter. We're on 4 nulls. pretty no crit nulls. We like our draws. We also run 4 heals. Heals are good, and then we run 8 fronts. All right, why 8 fronts? Simply because that you do generate, your Excel Circle generation is quite strong. You can accelerate it pretty well if you do a re-ride on your second grade 3 turn. You might have 3 Excel Circles, so the value from fronts become really good. Another thing also is that your power lines don't hit very high, so if you trigger a front, then everything feels good, and you can start hitting over triggers effectively. And combine that with a Shuriken, you can have strong turns where they basically have a hard time guarding like 7, 8 attacks. So, or is it, no, it'll be like 6. I'm like over calculating. It's just hard, all right? It's just hard. Actually, no, it'd be more, right? I don't know. Yeah, lots of attacks. So fronts do well. Crits, sure, crits are cool, but they get a trigger, you're basically done for the turn. Now let's talk about some strengths and weaknesses of this deck. So strengths is that you can steamroll really hard when you go first. Again, like I said, Yasuie does not require you to have any restriction, like any counterblast, any soul. You just have to discard 2 cards, which is the easiest restriction. Oh, you have to have Tenma in the drop zone, but he kind of just goes to the drop zone by himself. A lot of cards send things to the drop zone, so it's not exactly hard. So there's basically no restrictions on your re-ride, so you can just kind of steamroll really hard from there. But the other thing is that just from Tenma himself, not Tenma, from Stealth Rogue of Revelation Yasuie, VR Yasuie, right? Just from him, he can generate decent amounts of advantage just by himself. Cloning 2, you clone like some Nudos, bam, you get more attacks, you get to draw at the end of turn. So yeah, you can really steamroll from there, especially when you go first. Second, we have strong deck compression, Awazu's, and just Yasuie's skill that lets you keep on cloning. Basically get rid of all the normal cards from your deck to get more like front triggers, trigger more of that. Hopefully. So yeah, you have strong deck compression when you compare it to other people. And like other decks, right? DI, there's some targeted soul charge, there's some blind soul charge. With Night Rose, you just basically mill. There's no, well, there is some target. It's like Columbar. That's pretty much it, right? But like Awazu's free, so don't forget. So your compression methods are better because you can keep on cloning them out. Clone 2 out every turn. Yeah, just keep on going. Lastly, it's a relatively versatile deck when you think about it. So you can draw. You can compress your deck. You also have removal. Like Tenma himself is a removal. And you can play other cards, like I'm running Fushimi, you don't have to, but you can kind of tailor your deck for the meta. You can even run other stuff, like we've seen hybrid Yasuie Hyuga builds for the Ward meta, so you have a lot of ways to build your deck, because remember, every iteration of Murakumo has been meta, so you can kind of mix those Murakumo cards in and maybe build a totally different deck just to counter your current meta, right? Weaknesses with this deck, so there's a big reliance on your VR Yasuie. If you don't ride that VR Yasuie, your game plan is kind of stumped. Like, sure, you have Tenma, but Tenma is just not the same, right? You clone 1, that doesn't steamroll into anything good. So if you don't get that VR Yasuie, you're just feeling bad, which is like a common problem amongst a lot of the new G reboot cards or clans, because they just focus on that one boss unit and forget the rest. You can get really cucked hard by damage triggers. So overall, the power of this deck, power lines don't really hit that high unless you trigger fronts. You're relying on triggering fronts. If you don't trigger fronts, they get 1 damage trigger. Basically, half your attacks might just not really hit or hit really poorly. So your opponent can easily guard them. That's combined with a weak Vanguard column. So if you think about the re-ride of Yasuie, it's swing for 12, and then you re-ride a Tenma, and that's swing for 12. So one of them gets a boost, and that's about it. So it's like a really piss poor column. You're gonna just feel bad, especially if you get it against the Force Clan. That thing's gonna hit like Force Clan's 13k. You just not doing anything. So overall, you got a weak Vanguard, easy to guard. Even like Night Rose, right? It's 33k by itself with like a booster. So yeah, it just feels bad. And the last thing is you cannot turn off your brain. Now, why? Why would you put that in? You have to use your brain when playing Vanguard, right? No, you are wrong. Sometimes you don't. You can play an easy deck that does a bunch of stuff for nearly free, right? Just look at DI, right? Multi-attacks, draws, gets big power columns, hits like 5 times. There is not much setup required for the deck at all. If you misplay with the Dark Irregulars, I don't think you get super punished, unlike Yasuie, where your columns suddenly don't hit good numbers anymore. You miss sequence something, and now you're done, right? So there's a lot of sequencing, you have to pay attention, you have to really understand how the power lines are going to work. You can't really turn off your brain. So if you like that, that's fine. You know, you want to use your brain a bit, get it working, oil that up. But again, like, you do need to do things correctly, and if you don't, if you go to a tournament with this and you don't, you more likely are going to lose and you get punished. So those are just the strengths and weaknesses. Let's just jump into some combos. Okay, so here are some quick combos that you should probably know as a Yasuie player, mainly focused around juggling Shiryukis. So first, let's talk about the Owazu into Shiryuki combo. Very simple. You need 4 cards in your soul to pull this off, and you need to be on original Yasuie. So let's go. We call out an Owazu. He searches the Shiryuki that is still in your deck. So he's now a Shiryuki. Put it in the drop zone. Then we use our Yasui's effect. We clone. So let's say we clone this Ataka and the Owazu, which is a Shiryuki. So we can call out 2. And then Shiryuki skill will trigger. We can Soul Blast 2 to -5k to our opponent. And then here is where the fun begins, right? If you want to conserve hand, then you can choose to not replace Shiryuki. So let's go through this first. So you do your attacks. Let's say you attack with your Vanguard and use his effect. So now you will ride the Tenma. And then you get your Excel circle. And you draw a card. And then here, you trigger your Takahime's skills, right? So first, let's say we want to copy another Ataka, right? So we get our Ataka, we replace our Shiryuki. And now Shiryuki's in the drop, so we can actually get it back. So our second Takahime also triggers. And we choose our Owazu. And it comes out. Shiryuki skill triggers again. We have 2 soul because we wrote, so we have just enough, -5k, and now we continue our push. That's just an easy one. But what happens if you want to conserve, like, Counterblast? Okay, so let's say we only had 1 face up, and we're kind of back here. All right. So our Owazu is still a Shiryuki, and we've just used Tenma's effect. I think we need more soul. Well, no, we didn't use a Tenma effect. We used our Yasuie effect. So we want to conserve Counterblast with this. We only have 1 face up, so it's still doable. It's still doable. So you'll attack. Instead of attacking immediately, you just need to play over. You just need to play over your Shiryuki. So your Shiryuki's in the drop zone. So you've already used her effect. Put in -5k. Play over the Shiryuki, so now it's in the drop. Just attack with Yasuie. You ride the Tenma. You get the Excel 2 out. 1 CB, easy. Just copy the Owazu. Bam. Comes out in the empty slot. So there we go. 2 very easy ways to just juggle out a Shiryuki from an Owazu. So here's a question, right? What happens if Shiryuki is not in your deck anymore? Then you can't do it. Tough luck. You don't have an Owazu that can let you do that. What you can do, though, is if you run Metamorphox, then you can do it. It's just you play your Shiryuki, your Metamorphox comes in and copies a Shiryuki, and then now you've got your thing. Unfortunately, Owazu, you have to search your deck and dump it into the bin to copy the effect, to gain the name. But Metamorphox lets you just copy anything on the field. So if you really want to be able to do this double Shiryuki play, even when it's not in your deck, then you have to run Metamorphox. And sure, you do have some slots for it. You have at least 2 slots, maybe 3 if you want to cut some grade 2s. It's up to you. But if you want to be able to have that option, then yes, you have to run Metamorphox. Okay, so let's do some test mulligans. It's not hard, actually. It's very easy. Here, we drew 5 cards. Do we draw our Revelation Yasuie? We don't, then tough luck. Keep this one, because this can help us search. We keep this, because it's a grade 2. And then, now we hope for the best. 3 go to the bottom. Draw 3 more. Even if I had a Tenma in my hand, I'd still dump it. Sorry, we drew 1 too much. So we have this. It's not very good, but we have a lot of grade 3 searchers, so we might be able to get there. So let's just quickly do a quick shuffle. Definitely shuffle better in real life. Now, let's say we draw for turn, nothing. I would ride the Takahime. simply because she is your best chance at getting a good Yasuie. And we're probably just gonna miss, right? Yeah. Never lucky, right? Never lucky. But we have 2 grade 3 searchers that will allow us to do stuff. I wouldn't play them out now because if you're going first, you can. If you go second, then you can play one down to boost and hit numbers. Probably take a damage here, and then that sucks because we actually need that card. We go into our grade 2 turn, we draw. Here is interesting, right? Depending on the matchup. Well, actually, we have two Fushimi, so I just ride the Fushimi, and it gives us like able to kill Killer Tails or kill Navigators or things like that. But now we have to search our grade 3 because we just don't have a grade 3. We have 2 grade 3 searchers. We can put this like here, top 5, and we get Revelations. So we're saved. All right, we're saved. Good times. Moving on, let's do another mulligan. That hand that we just had was actually okay because we had an Awazu for next turn. We have a Revelations. We had one more grade 3 searcher that we can search something like a Nudo, and that'll just make everything really nice. So here we drew Tenma again. I wouldn't keep it. We have this. Medora Pyro, would I keep that? Yeah, this helps us dig if we draw more grade 2s. And then you could probably keep this. Draw 2. Because this doesn't look at top 5, which is more than drawing 2. So let's do our shuffle. We drew another grade 3 searcher, which is okay. But we just really need a fish for that. For the Yasuie. So draw, we don't get it. Again, top 7. Draw 1. Oh, we get it, we win. Good times. Top 7. Can we get another Yasuie? Nope, we get a bunch of Nudos. Oh, that was here, right? A bunch of Nudos. Tough luck. Alright, so from here, I think we're pretty set. We have our grade 3 searchers that can search our Revelations. Honestly speaking, you don't even need to like re-ride, as long as you can get a good advantage turn and just really swing the tempo in your favor by getting some Nudos. That's basically the key, right? You take a damage, burn 1. Unlucky. You want to keep on getting more of those. Oh, there we did. Voice command. Alright, so yeah, here is just good times. You'd probably keep the Awazu because it has more value. And then you just ride the Medora Pyro because you got everything you really need. And let's just look at some top 5 cards. Bam, what do we get? Do we get anything? We get it done. Right, we got this or we can get this. Here, it depends if you want to go aggressive or not, but this with this is pretty good because you can just draw a bunch of cards. So yeah, some great mulligans this time. Okay, hopefully this gives you a better idea on how to play Yasuie. It's not the easiest deck in the format to play because you don't get everything for free, unlike Shaharat or the Cross. So yeah, it's not exactly simple. Excel 2 kind of, well, Excel clans, not just Excel 2 clans, are a bit nerfed now because a lot of the Force clans are really strong and they just basically get that extra power. You're just gonna get like hammer your face in really quickly. So it's not gonna get better because Luard is around, but in this format at least, strong protect decks are around where you can kind of take advantage of their slow starts. And just if you go first with Yasuie, you basically get a good times happening. I know we've seen a Hyuga hybrid build. Now that actually played with the new PR. This current build for English requires 0 PR. That is much more stable in a way that you aren't focused on just riding your Revelations Yasuie. It has Hyuga as well, so you technically have better ride targets and aren't stuck with just the Yasuie conundrum where you're on the wrong Yasuie. But that's up to you. I'll post a picture of it, and you can take a look if you like that or not. But it's definitely some place to look into. You just have to figure out what to replace the PRs for. So that's it for me. Hopefully you learned something about Yasuie today, or just learned how to deal with it better, maybe? It's not hard. It's not hard to deal with it better. So yeah, that's it. I'll see you guys in the next video, and bye.